Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Carlos Gimenez just takes it to Wolf Blitzer, who still cannot fathom that this indeed is the Schumer shutdown. That's what's going on. Let's dive in.
If indicted, Bolton would become the third foe of President Trump's to face criminal charges. The president talked about stopping the weaponization of the U.S. justice system out there when he was on the campaign trail. Is he now using his own Department of Justice to go after his political critics and his political opponents?
Well, I mean, if in fact the grand jury says there's sufficient evidence to indict, John Bolton, then that's the way it is. And so nobody is above the law. And so it has to go through the process. And let's see what the end game here is. But if in fact he did misuse classified information, then, he needs to, face the music. And so let's see what happens.
But Congressman, President Trump actually posted out there on his Truth social media site back on September 20th instructing the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to take action on James Comey, Letitia James, and Adam Schiff. Comey and James have been indicted. So what do you say to Americans who look at this and worry that the justice system is being politicized?
Look, we had the same issues back when President Biden was the president. We think that he politicized the justice system in this case, though. Again, let's see how this all plays out. Obviously, a grand jury found there was sufficient evidence to bring James Comey to indict James Comey, and let's see what happens with John Bolton. Again, nobody's above the law, and we're going to have to go through the system. And so, again, I'm going to withhold judgment of whether it's political or not. The American judicial system will dictate that.
On the government shutdown, Congressman, a subject close to your heart and so many others, Senate Democrats say they won't vote for the short-term funding bill that the House passed without changes to health care subsidies. But Republicans are refusing to negotiate until the government is actually opened. Are you comfortable with health care costs skyrocketing right now to millions of Americans without those subsidies?
Well, look, this is something that the Democrats created when they actually implemented those subsidies. They're the ones that created this endpoint, this cliff, for lack of a better word. So it's a Democrat-created crisis, and the continuing resolution. All they need to do, look, why don't we just open up the government, and then we can have the discussions about these subsidies. As you know, I am a co-sponsor on a bill that was filed by Jen Kiggins of Virginia that extended those subsidies for a year. I actually believe that the Democrats actually want those subsidies to expire. And they don't want to come back and talk about it, because if we actually end up extending that, it'll be the Republicans who did it. This is a crisis created by the Democrats some years ago when they actually created the subsidies to begin with. Hey, open the government. You have people on our side that are willing to talk about it. And I think that we can do something about it, but we're not going to do anything about it until you open the government. Open the government. We've done it 13 times in the past. I've always voted to keep the government open, even though I was against a lot of the policies that the Democrats, passed during the time when they were in power. This is just, again, playing games with America, playing games with our servicemen and women. They want to also increase spending by over $1 trillion. That's a non-starter. But you know what? The subsidies is not a non-starter. We need to open the government back so that we can get to that.
And you want your constituents in Florida, especially the elderly people, to be able to continue getting that break in terms of their health insurance, so it doesn't skyrocket the cost, right?
I agree 100%. But at the end of the day, too, remember, those subsidies were supposed to be temporary in nature. They were supposed to be for COVID. I think we need a soft landing on that subsidy, not a cliff. The cliff was created by the Democrats. Now they're saying, well, we want to fix this. Yeah, we want to fix it too. Open the government, and then we can get on to the subject of negotiating exactly how that is going to happen. But it won't happen unless you open the government. Open the government like we did when you were in power.
We played ball in the past. It's time for the Democrats to play ball. Okay? We've had to carry water for things that we didn't like before. It's your turn to do it. That is the nice way of putting it. But the Democrats don't want to play ball. They don't. They don't like playing ball. They don't like the fact that they have to play with another opponent. They don't like the fact that there's an opponent at all. And it's created this very odd chimera where everyone is now just sort of duking it out with each other. All because of stubborn pride. And because, Democrats keep wanting to fund illegal immigrants and think that subsidies are the way to save on healthcare. No, when our healthcare system requires you buying a product from this guy who has to get approval from this guy, so this doctor can talk to this hospital, but this hospital has to talk with this insurance company, and that insurance company has a client list that they're not allowed to sell to. We've got a convoluted system that has to be simplified. That's the solution. Forget the subsidies for just a few moments, and I actually have to give some thanks, by the way, to someone who isn't in the room here, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Actually, thank you. Americans are going to hurt because of this shutdown, and she's one of the lone Republicans that says, yeah, this is a legitimate problem. People rely on this now. It also, however, reveals an even bigger problem. Americans should not be reliant on these major government subsidies to begin with. Now we are. It's this cruel paradox where once you get hooked on something, you're forced to keep taking it, and you can't go cold turkey. All right? It's the fentanyl crisis, for lack of a better phrase. But we've got to turn the page. Because we can talk about the Schumer shutdown till we're blue in the face, but I think the most important part of this video is actually the John Bolton story. The way this was framed, this is where Wolf Blitzer thought he was going to win on this. Blitzer thought that he was going to win talking about these 5 people that he showed in the video that are getting investigated by the Trump administration. First, let's actually look at what's happening with John Bolton. Years ago, U.S. intelligence came to believe Bolton's emails were hacked by a foreign adversary, with Iran being the top suspect. The hack of the AOL account was part of the reasons for federal investigators searched his Maryland home in August, court records about the searchers have said. That's the information that we currently have. That means, oh no, we're not looking at John Bolton because he's been critical of President Trump. We're looking at him because he might have committed federal crimes and accidentally committed treason. That is a very ugly word, treason. It should not ever be thrown around lightly. Okay, for Democrats who've been saying this about Republicans and vice versa, do not use words lightly. Rhetoric has consequences. But when you go after President Trump and you end up sleeping with your prosecutor, like Fani Willis, there's going to be consequences. When you go after President Trump and it turns out you have likely, and at least allegedly so far, have committed mortgage fraud. Letitia James. When Jack Smith is being investigated because this whole witch hunt against President Trump smells a bit odd, yeah, he's going to get an investigation. When you have also allegedly, like Letitia James, committed mortgage fraud in Maryland, like Adam Schiff, you're going to get investigated. And then when you have likely had your accounts hacked and have been accidentally leaking information, you're going to get investigated. An investigation is not proof of crime. It is just the suspicion of one. That is the whole point and purpose of having a judicial system to begin with. It is okay that investigations happen. It's not okay for witch hunts to happen. It's not okay for things to be baseless. That's why we have our Bill of Rights. That's why we have our abilities to go back and forth between the justice system and whoever's doing the investigation go, hold up, there's a problem here. You didn't file your paperwork correctly, or it turns out this evidence needs to be thrown out. We have this system for a reason, and we watched it get weaponized against Donald Trump, and now everyone's magically clutching their pearls? This is insane. It is insane to think that there are no consequences for your bad actions. John Bolton, who despised Trump even when he was working for him. He hated the idea that President Trump could come in and fundamentally change the system. And guess what? On foreign policy, that seems like to be what has happened. Trump has given up the ridiculous power games and said, all right, we're going to make everyone money. We're going to make sure everyone's nice and is respectful of one another. Okay? No more free rides. We're going to change things. And the deep state hates that. Now, there's a logical reason why they do, and I'm not going to get into that today. But they hate the idea that someone from outside of their bubble is fixing things. Because it means that the people inside their bubble aren't good at actually, fixing the problems that they created. It is a very Byzantine way of thinking, and it has to end. Pragmatism wins. Results win. And when you got caught manipulating a system, guess what? Justice is going to win. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.